Driven by a passion for both medicine and the written world, this author was born in the vibrant city of Bangalore, India. Much of her formative years were spent in the heart of Louisville, Kentucky. This individual is not only a healer of bodies, but a healer of minds and hearts through the art of storytelling. One of her crowning achievements is the middle grade novel in verse Red, White, and Whole, which has garnered numerous awards, including a prestigious Newbery Honor. Her literary prowess extends beyond this masterpiece, with acclaimed awards such as Midsummer Mayhem, Seven Golden Rings, and many more. So without further ado, let us welcome the brilliant writer, Dr. Rajani LaRocca.
Oh my goodness, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm excited to talk to you.
Diverse representation in literature has been a significant focus of your work. Can you share why you believe it's so important for young readers to see themselves reflected in books and how this belief has influenced your writing?
You know, it's really interesting. I grew up in the US as an Indian American in the 70s and 80s, and I read lots of books. Like, I loved books. I read all kinds of books with all kinds of characters, and I empathized with all kinds of people. Um, but I never saw myself in the pages of a book. I never saw a book about somebody like me, not in the US and not in India when I went to visit my relatives there. And I didn't realize what I was missing until I was in my early 30s and I finally read a novel for adults that involved an Indian American character. And I couldn't believe what that felt like. I felt like, although the character wasn't exactly like me, their family came from a different part of India, and it was a male character, but I still felt seen in a way that I had never experienced before. So that was kind of a life-changing moment for me. And it wasn't until a couple of years into writing that I thought to myself, why am I writing about people who are not like me? Why wouldn't I write stories about people like me? And I think it's because it's very ingrained in us if we grow up in a society that is different from that looks different from us, that we think that all the stories that are worthy of being told are about other people. So kind of after that moment of epiphany, I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. And I don't know if anybody's going to want to read these stories, but I'm just going to try. So I think that it's really important for people to recognize themselves in a story. But I also think it's really important that people read about people who are not exactly like them and see the common threads that tie us all together as people.
You have a unique dual role as both a practicing physician and a celebrated author of books for young people. Could you share how you balance these two distinct careers, and how has your medical background enriched your creative writing?
That's a great question. What I would say is that I think both of these careers have to do with loving people and being interested in people and kind of accepting people for who they are. In medicine, one of the things we're taught is to ask questions and listen with open minds and open hearts and not judge people, because we're there to help with whatever is going on. And we as doctors are not there to judge you. So I think that that's helpful to practice that kind of empathy, to say, you know what, we all make mistakes. It's okay. And we'll try and deal with whatever is happening right now. And I think similarly, with stories, I think characters are very much the same way. You can't write about a character that's too perfect, because who wants to read about somebody who's too perfect? They have to have their own flaws. And I think that being a doctor and listening to real people's stories helps you create stories that feel real.
In your bio, you mentioned how the books you read as a child helped shape who you are today. Could you share a specific book or author that had a profound impact on you as a young reader and influenced your desire to become a writer?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll share a couple of things. So one is my favorite book as a child was a book called The Westing Game by Ellen Raskin. And it's kind of like a mystery. A bunch of heirs are called to the reading of the will of a rich old man and they find out that he died under mysterious circumstances, and whoever figures out what happened to him gets all of his money. But what was really cool about this book is that there's a big cast of characters. There's adults and children, and the main character is a child named Turtle Wexler. Um, and in the course of trying to solve this mystery, she learns a lot about, the other heirs and her own family and herself. And it was one of the few books in which I felt like the cast of characters was pretty diverse. So I don't think I had words for it at that time when I was a child, but I thought it was really cool that there were a bunch of different characters, some of whom were from other countries, and they were all together, kind of trying to solve this thing together. They were kind of in competition with one another, but it turns out that like working with each other was the best way to solve this mystery. And the other thing is that one of the big themes in the book is about what it means to be American. And, many of the characters or several of the characters are immigrants in this book. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a really cool take on things. So I loved that book. And one other book that I'll mention it's called Ouch, All About Cuts and Other Hurts. And it was a nonfiction book, things that like, what happens under your skin when you get a little scrape or a little scratch. And I was fascinated by this. I was fascinated by how our bodies heal us without us having to think about it. And that was the book that made me want to go into medicine. So I thought that was really neat. Some of the books that I write are nonfiction about science and specifically about the human body because it's always been something that's fascinating to me. And I hope that it inspires some future doctors as well.
Empathy makes the world a better place is a powerful statement you made in your bio. How do you see writing and reading diversely contributing to the cultivation of empathy? And what role does your work play in achieving this goal?
So first of all, I think that reading anything makes you more empathetic. Getting out of your own head and the act of reading and picturing these characters means that you put yourself in somebody else's place, right? And that is kind of the definition of empathy, right? Is understanding where somebody else is coming from. So any reading can help you do that, but also to read about people who aren't exactly like you, because if you look at the world around us, it's full of all kinds of different people. And if you just want to like be prepared to live in the world we live in, you need, the more you should expose yourself to different types of people. And if you don't live in a particularly diverse place, reading about different people can help you get some of that experience. And I think that one of the things that reading about different types of people can do, about characters that you care about who come from different backgrounds than you, it can help you appreciate different people and their different cultures and kind of the things that they grapple with that may or may not be different from what you grapple with. But it also shows us our common humanity and how, like, no matter where you come from, there are some basic things that all of us want, right? And so I think that also helps us understand what it is to be a fellow human being.
Your middle grade novel, Inverse, Red, White, and Whole, has received numerous awards and honors. Can you discuss how themes of cultural identity and diversity are explored in this book and what message you hope young readers take away from it?
Yeah, so Red, White, and Whole is set in 1983, and it is about a 13-year-old girl named Reha who feels torn between the world of her Indian immigrant parents and her friends at school who are mostly white. So like any normal American teenager, she wants to listen to awesome music, wear cool clothes, go to a middle school dance. But her parents, and especially Reha's mom, feel like she has better things to do with her time. So Reha is struggling with this when she learns that her mom has been diagnosed with a kind of blood cancer called leukemia, and her whole world changes. And Reha feels that if she could just be the perfect daughter, the daughter that her parents want her to be, that she can somehow save her mom's life. So, from the very beginning of this book, Reha feels like she has two lives. That's literally the first line of the book. I have two lives, one that is Indian, one that is not. So she feels, and this book is really about what Reha feels, right? Not necessarily about how other people make her feel, but how she feels internally. So she feels very torn between the way she is at school, the typical American teenager, and the way she is at home on the weekends. And it was a feeling that I had when I was a kid as well. And she feels like there are these kind of two very separate worlds, and she can't figure out which one she really belongs to or whether she really belongs to either one. And she finds that among the things that bridge this gap are music. And so pop music, especially 80s pop music, is a very big theme in this book as well. And then the other thing that is a theme in the book is science. So Reha wants to be a doctor, and she's interested in biology. All of that comes into question when her mom is really sick and she's in the hospital, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, can I even stand to be in this place, let alone contemplate a career in this?" But one of the things that kind of carries through is that science and biology is something that we all share in common as well, no matter where we come from. So I'm not going to tell you what happens in the book. Readers are going to have to figure that out for themselves. But what I will say is that what I hope that readers get from this book are a few things. One is that we all feel divided at some point because none of us is just one thing. So I'm Indian American. I am a doctor and an author. I'm a mom, a daughter, a wife, a baker, all these things. And there are times, especially during adolescence, when you feel like all these things are in conflict with one another, that you can't be all of these things together. But what I would say is that despite all of us have different aspects to ourselves, we can still be whole people. The other thing I hope readers get from this book is that we're all telling stories about ourselves to ourselves and to each other all the time. Now, not all of us are going to be writers someday, and that's fine, but we are all telling stories, whether it's in a classroom or in a lab or on a sports field or on stage. And it is important that all of us figure out what is the story we're trying to tell about ourselves and make sure we tell it because the world needs to hear it. And then, finally, many of my books, and I think many books that are for young readers, have to do with the notion of belonging, about where we belong, whether there is a place where we belong. And one of the nice things about growing up is that you realize that ultimately we decide where we belong, right? We create the communities where we find the people that support us and love us, and we create those communities where we belong. But I would say that, something that we tell children and we remind them of all the time is that it is our duty as fellow human beings to create communities in which everybody belongs, right? But I think it's really important that we all remember that as we grow up, and that sometimes kids have to remind the adults about that as well.
As co-host of the STEM Women in Kid Lit podcast, you have a platform to discuss the intersection of STEM and literature. How do you think STEM-related content in children's literature can help inspire young minds, especially those from diverse backgrounds, to pursue careers in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics?
So I love science and math. I've loved it from when I was a kid. I think I think it's so fascinating because the language of math and science is the same, no matter where you are, right? Like no matter what country you come from or what language you speak. So that is something we all have in common as people. And I think that is amazing. I think there is inherent beauty to math and to science. And so my science books that I've written come from a place of joy and wonder. And I think that if you can inspire joy and wonder about math and science, which I mean exists everywhere you look, then you're going to get a bunch of young people interested in learning more about math and science going forward.
In closing, our conversation with Rajani has been a captivating exploration of the life of a physician and an award-winning author. Her remarkable path from Bangalore to becoming a Harvard-trained physician and a celebrated writer highlights the boundless potential of passion and dedication. Her belief that everyone should find themselves in book serves as an enduring testament to the importance of representation. We extend our gratitude to Rajani for sharing her extraordinary journey, insights, and dedication to making the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.